I'll see it.
We're live. I see us on YouTube.
All right. 30 seconds. Thanks for joining us today for MasterCoaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz and our after show Buzz Reaction. I'm Ruth Nelson, joined by Hall of Famers Mick Haley, Bob Bertucci, and Brian Gimolero, bringing you the most current issues and trends in volleyball. If you're viewing for the first time, our weekly news show has leaders in our sport provide their perspective on the questions that are asked, along with the discussion on topics that are current and ones that are effective all us during this challenging time. Our Buzz Reaction After Show now features guests that have been selected from our Sign Up to Be a Guest program. Be sure to listen to the details at the end of the show on how to get on our guest list. Our newsflash: dead period for D1 was extended through May 31st with the option for any changes during the April 14th to 15th meeting to define what is permissible by coaches and universities. We will address this issue in more detail in our Buzz Reaction today. Want to make a difference? Please remember to renew your AVCA membership. This one organization represents all coaches at all levels when lobbying for the changes that are needed in our sport. And you can make a difference by registering at avca.org. Today's Buzz Show: MasterCoaches will be providing a part 2 of our discussion from last week's show with Cal State Fullerton's volleyball staff on the newest and innovative approaches to utilizing consultants and mentors based on their experience. So let's begin our discussion with Hall of Famer Mick Haley.
Thanks, Ruth. This is pretty exciting. This is our second show in this regard. We got such an unbelievable output of viewers last week that we wanted to continue this a little bit more and be a little bit more specific about what's available out there. You know, I used to have a consultant at USC. In fact, I had a consultant for 17 years at USC, and I felt it was well worth the cost. Today, we're examining the second part of this, not commonly used practice really by volleyball coaches, and exploring consultants and mentors is extremely important, I think, because it helps fill in some of the holes, and you can bounce questions off of people that have been in those situations before and get another perspective. So we're really excited about the information we've got to give today, and I'm going to introduce Brian Gimolero, a longtime head coach at and national championship coach at Long Beach State University, who does both consulting and mentoring now, as do the rest of our Master Coaches group here. Brian, can you give us an idea of what kind of services coaches might receive from like Master Coaches group in consulting and mentoring?
Yeah, Mick, I share your feeling. We did the show last week kind of because we were kind of talked into it, and it was the responses was amazing. The people, we found out that there's a real need out there for consultants, for people who will help coaches. And I talked to several coaches, and they all said the same thing. There's a real need. We need your help. And so we've been tossing it around, the four of us, and we wanted people to know what we can offer. So let's say some coach contacted us and said, we're interested. Well, first, I think the first thing we would do is a needs assessment. What do you need? What is the actual needs of your program and you right now? What are the pressures you're under? What are you facing? What internal pressures, what pressures you're bringing on yourself? And what do you want to accomplish? What are the goals for your program this particular season? And then look at where you're strong and where you would like to improve. What you have. Let's take a look at what we have. What kind of a program next? What kind of program do we want? What are we trying to tell players? What do we want them to get? Organizing an idea of what vision we have and what we want to explain to young people, young players. Then I think it's important that what we do, and the reason the four of us got together as master coaches, is that there's been a real drop in the idea of teaching how to. We no longer, or we've become weak at teaching how to. We've gotten good and pretty good over time at coming up with a plan. We would help develop that plan, but even coaches that have that plan, how do you implement it? How do you teach a particular skill? How do you organize a practice, and how do you adjust? When a player can't, we get pretty good at telling a player what we want them to do, but we're not very good at telling them how to do it and how to adjust and how to change when we need to. Our communication skills need to be developed. How we organize our practice, how we break down a film, how we get ready for the season, how we get ready for the second time we play a particular team. What kind of strategies do we use? What kind of individual skills do we use? How do we teach them? And how do we teach a collective skill? And how do we get players to buy into that? And that's just touching the surface of what we'd like to do with different coaches and what we have done, what we're currently doing. And that can be an overall look, individual looks, but basically that's what we want to do as master coaches. And I will say that with your help, Ashley was on her own, but Ashley from Fullerton was the Big West Coach of the Year. I don't know exactly. I think even though you didn't, it was, we won't give you any credit, but, and that's the other thing, we're not in there to do anything except to help people, help support people where they don't have a real support system. I wanted Bob to lend this to this in the sense that Bob is still coaching. And how does he see, or how does he use, or how does he want to use a mentor program? So Bob, I'm turning it over to you.
Well, Brian, thanks. I'm really excited about this whole thing, the whole topic of consulting and mentorship, because, what Ashley did with her staff, was, she put herself out there and, took advantage of the, the people that had some expertise and ability to assist her, and it really worked out well for her. And Mick, I hate to be giving you a lot of credit for anything, but he's really been innovative. I didn't realize that you've been using the consultant with your programs for years.
Yep.
All right. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about is how I've always felt for all the years I've been coaching, the stigma of going out to people that were really friends of mine, but they were also coaches and they were competitors, and to ask them how to do something, or ask them for their opinion on my team, I just didn't never feel comfortable doing that. I mean, and to this day, you go to like the AVCA convention or something, and you'll notice how people will want that help, but everybody feels like, hey, I'm supposed to know all this stuff. And the thing is, you get stuck. You just could use some help. And what are friends for? What are your older coaches, your people that have been through the trenches? Why not take advantage of that? So, for years I didn't take advantage of that, and I would go to a convention or something and kind of say, hey, I heard about so and so that was having this problem, just to find out, when maybe it was really me having that problem. All right. And I wanted to find out how somebody else was going to deal with it. So I think, I think right now, I'll give you an example, and this was great that we got together as a group, because just about that same time is when I left the women's game, and went to the men's game. And here I am, changing after, a number of years of doing men and women, and then coming back to the men. All right. And there was a lot of things that, that I wasn't 100% sure about. But the fact that I had 3 of you guys to bounce things off of was extremely valuable to me. I mean, we had to go in and change a whole culture. And I had a team of guys that were training themselves for the last 5 months, just so to get some insights, and then to be able to talk about the differences of the men and women's game, all right, with people that have done both genders, for a number of years was really helpful. So, I think I'm glad we're starting to delve into this a little bit. I think we're looking at other sports that, like basketball and football have been doing this for years, all right, where coaches would actually go and spend a week, at another coach's practice, all right, or maybe go to a particular coach because they wanted to learn their offensive system that they were using with their football. This happens a lot in football. So I think that the fact that we're kind of starting to do this, and the value it has for, not just collegiate coaches, but high school coaches, club coaches, young coaches, older coaches. I mean, look at me. I've been coaching for more than 40 years at the Division I collegiate level. And I finally have gotten to a point where I feel comfortable, talking to, Brian, you and Mick and Ruth, and asking questions, hey, I'm having trouble with, my team siding out. What do you think I should do? And I'll get, a couple of different answers. And then I got to basically make that decision myself. But it gets me thinking about some of the stuff that you might have forgotten. You knew once, but you hadn't used for a while. Last year, I remember, talking with Mick, because we were having a little trouble finishing the game. And he came up with 2 or 3 drills that he used a lot, at USC and with the national team. And, I threw that into our practice, and the guys loved it. They absolutely loved it. And it, it wasn't something that, it was just things that he had done and really liked and shared it with me. And of course I used it, and it helped us out. So I really think that getting over the stigma of doing this is really key. And, maybe Ruth can talk a little bit about, how we would be approaching it with current coaches.
Would it be okay if I jumped in there before Ruth?
Sure, absolutely.
You're older than all of us. Go right ahead.
Really? I am? Well, I just wanted to jump in for one thing and tell Bob the bill's in the mail. And actually talk about the tough part of this, and that's the business side. I was going to throw the business side in there a little bit. As I said, I employed a consultant for 17 years at USC. And it didn't start out, I didn't start out to think I was going to do this, but I had a person that actually could evaluate in practice, was there to talk to who had a different viewpoint, and I could bounce ideas off of this person the whole time. So I felt guilty in asking him to come and take a look or do these kinds of things. So I wanted to get him on the payroll. And I had just left the Olympic team coming to USC. And so I go to my athletic director, Mike Garrett, and basically I said, I want to hire a consultant. And he looked at me and said, you were the Olympic coach. What do you need a consultant for? And, that's the way a lot of times administrators think, and they don't get that there are other things that you're trying to open up. And I was coming from a different experience, 4 years traveling around the world, to going back to the college scene where it had changed a great bit. And I wanted to get on top of it right away. And so I wanted different opinions, and I wanted to know what was going on, and I wanted to find out other things. I didn't feel like I could call around and ask similar um, feeling as what Garrett relayed to me about, well, you're the Olympic coach, you should know everything. Well, it doesn't really work that way. And so um, in the business side of this, I've done a bunch of these things, and the hardest thing was not to just uh, answer coaches' questions when they called. I've worked the last 3 years doing this with a number of different programs. Um, the first thing that came up was I was asked to work with the team for the whole year, and that was Ashley's program. But I had a couple of other programs that had also approached me for that. And you say, well, what does that cost in the way of doing things? And I find in talking to other coaches that they're doing some of this, usually consulting for a whole season is somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000. And schools are paying that, not individual coaches, but some coaches do that because they feel it's so important that they go to their camp and they pull that money out of their camp and put it into someone. And what does that entail? Well, that for me entailed I needed to learn everything about their program. I needed to know how they were doing things. I needed to understand what they were doing. But my job was to ask and give my opinion when I was asked, to volunteer when I was asked, to make sure that I watched the game films. I looked at the stats. I watched how the practices were being constructed. I looked at the use of the assistant coaches. I did all of those things, and that in doing this, I really spent like I was totally involved in the team, and it was really important that I knew what the temperament of the team was, that I viewed matches on a regular basis, that the coach had access to me at least once a week on just a drop dead call anytime. If something happened, an injury before a game, and had an idea about changing the lineup, would this be a better thing? Those kinds of things. Those are all real important. Um, and so that was one of the things I got into. And I found out when I was at USC, my athletic director wouldn't pay for this. And so every coaches meeting, I'd bring this up to the other coaches. And I found out that Pete Carroll, the basketball coach and the baseball coach and a number of other coaches had been doing this for some time, bringing in consultants. As Bob talked about, football coaches. Well, if you ever watched that uh, ESPN clip on USC versus Nebraska, and how the Alabama coach, I'm sorry, not Nebraska, Alabama, the Alabama coach, SC went down and beat Alabama the first year. Alabama went to Texas to Darrell Royal and learned the wishbone in one summer, and in 3 weeks put it in to start the season, then ventured back to Memorial Coliseum in Los Angeles. And the Trojans thought it was going to be same old Alabama offense. And he comes out, Bear Bryant comes out with the wishbone and beats SC in the Coliseum 17-10 for one of the biggest upsets going. And so that's what football coaches do, but we don't seem to do that in volleyball. So in talking with these guys and pushing real hard in our coaches groups, we finally got it to be acceptable at USC to hire consultants. And there are different kinds of things that coaches have asked for. Like consultant is for the whole season. Sometimes I had one coach call me and say, listen, I want to pay you to go through spring or the fall practice with me, just a week of practice. I want to go on Zoom and I want to hook you up so I can hear you while I'm actually coaching the practice, and you can comment to me and I can ask you for questions during the practice. So I did 4 days of practice. And then after practice, worked with the coaches on Zoom, answering questions, talking about what I saw, what they saw, just sharing notes on that. And that usually goes, as little as $500 to $1,500 in that regard. All of these things are priced usually on the amount of hours you have to put in. I found that I usually charged between $100 and $150 an hour, depending upon what I was being asked to do, simply because that's how much it costs me to do these things and time out of my day. And if I'm working with 4 teams, for instance, or 5 teams, that's about all I can work with full time in a semester. So I made some rules for doing that. I don't know how the rest of you do this, but for myself, I never worked with more than 1 team from a conference. I try to stay away from that. I never talk about who I'm working with unless the coach, for instance, Ashley Preston was very open about having a consultant come into her program. And she was telling other people, you're missing the boat on this because I'm getting a whole lot out of this. And I thought she was wonderful. She had no fear, worried about what anybody else thought. She wanted to get her program back on track and win. And that's certainly what they did with Cal State Fullerton. And she took the ball and ran with it with her coaches. And that group really became a team. And then the team became a team. And so that was pretty fun. But those are kind of the numbers that I put together, the business side of this. And it's always the hardest thing to talk about. If you're like me and you're a coach and you call another coach, unless you're Bob, you call and you feel guilty that you're taking their time to ask them to look at your stats or look at your stuff. You really want to pay them, and you try to offer them something. And usually when it's friends, they don't do that. But honestly, if you want to use this service and you're not afraid to put some dollars up for it, there are coaches out there, at least MasterCoaches has been doing this. And, it's been a pretty successful thing. And we have a lot of fun with it because we, as Ashley said, we get younger and they get better. And it works really well for both of us. So sorry, Ruth, I'll turn it back over to you.
Oh, yeah, I know. This is the reason for being last, because I love it. All right, so Bob, first, there's no excuse for not winning. Isn't that right? Because if we're helping you, doesn't that mean you're going to win? Or maybe you're going to be more successful? So that's not a question. I'm making a statement. All right.
I think it's a process. It's definitely a process.
All right.
But keeping the perspective of the process is always good to have somebody to talk to about that.
All right. So one big question I would put before I'm going to make my statement regarding all of what everybody's contributed, and that is players, what are their feelings when they see someone else coming in? So I'm going to leave that thought in mind, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about this. If you're a coach listening to us today, you will see one common thread among everybody. A love and a passion for the sport equals the ability to share ideas and thoughts without making a coach feel uncomfortable about asking for guidance. Now, you only as good as you are when you surround yourself with those that can contribute to your growth as a person and as a coach. So many times coaches have been around a long time, or maybe even a short time. They just need a quick reminder of something that they might have not remembered to do, having just a small adjustment in cues, keywords, and or the approach that you are making to improve your program, staff, team, or individuals. And with that in mind, think about, I'm going to ask each of you to respond, and you only get 45 seconds. I am a D1 coach, and I'm at the bottom of the conference, and this is my first year at the school. And I'm looking to hire someone. What would you tell me, Mick? You have 45 seconds. I need some help. Mick?
Well, I need somebody that's been in more than just one program, like one level, Division I, somebody that's coached 3 or 4 divisions, because you have to do the assessment. I thought Brian had it right when he said assessment is first. So I would get someone who's been through it, and I would like somebody that's won at all of those levels. So that's what I would look for.
Okay, Brian.
Well, I really look for passion and openness. They have to be passionate. You got to be passionate about everything you do, because it's contagious. It goes on to different things. Enthusiasm, passion, their enthusiasm, and then open to learn and open to teach and willing to take the bull by the horns. And that's what I look for.
Okay, Bob.
Well, Ruth, your question really describes my situation to a T. So what I did is I went to MasterCoaches. Heck, we're working twice, a couple of times a week. I might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah,
And really, the
mail.
honest part of it was I've known all you guys for years, 30 years or more. All right, and actually, Ruth, maybe 50 years.
Oh no, I'm
Oh,
still.
Ruth, you may be the oldest.
48. Being
So,
48
but the thing was,
that's
when we all got together and we started working together, I felt like, I'm crazy not to take advantage of this, and everybody was making it. I mean, every time we got on a call, it's, hey Bob, how you doing? Well, I might as well tell you. and so I was getting some good information. So I would look at going to the MasterCoaches, guys that have been there, women that have been there and been able to get it done. And it doesn't bother me now as much as it did, years ago, because I feel like, you guys are going to help. So I feel good about it.
Well, I can say this, that common thread amongst us is if you have been in the sport for as long as Mick and I, Brian's less, Bob's less, if you've been at this long and you're still doing it, you must love to help people. And for sure, we're going to help. Mick, I'm going to go to you because you're going to talk a little bit about next week.
Well, I don't know what we're going to do next week.
You're not supposed to admit that, Mick.
I know, but
Well, we talked about trying to get the coaches that are actively playing at the women's game.
actually, I would have gotten to that, but we are going to look at what the situation is with Division I for sure. Now that almost all of the conferences are going to be back in it, and we're going to see who's where, and we're going to bring in hopefully a couple of coaches we haven't had on to give their focus and opinion on where we are and how this is going to work. So if I can pull that off, I'll try to put that together for next week, but you can be assured we'll come up with something exciting if that's not the case. But hopefully the coaches will come on and help us out with that.
Wonderful. I love it. We are on time. I don't have to rush you. John, you won't have to rush. All righty. Book your MasterCoaches custom virtual clinic today by heading over to our Instagram and click on the bio and click on virtual clinic link. If you'd like to be our guest on our list, Buzz Reaction After Show, please click on the link in our Instagram, Want to Be a Guest. And you will not only receive our updates, your name will be on our guest appearance list. Our weekly Buzz Show is on our YouTube channel, and you may access these directly through Instagram. Follow us on Facebook, Volleyball Master Coaches, Instagram and Twitter, VB Master Coaches. A special shout out to our partners, SNA Sports and Baden Sports. And thanks to our content providers, National Federation High Schools, Junior Volleyball Association, Coaches Insider, and the American Volleyball Coaches Association. Stay on Facebook Live after John closes our show today and join our Master Coaches Buzz Reaction to not only hear Master Coaches continue their conversation on today's show about the dead period being extended, but also the other thoughts, but also to hear our two new guests. Now, let's go to Buzz and Buzz Reaction. Boy, digital partner, Dr. John Foreman, who will update us on his most recent podcast. John, you've got a chance to talk.
It's a miracle. I could use 2 whole minutes here if I wanted to. Yeah, coming up on the podcast, I've got one of the guys in my squad here at Medaille who's got an interest in playing further once he gets out of college in a couple of years. So I actually connected him with my professional coaching friend, Ruben Wallachine, who currently coaches in Hungary, but he's from Argentina. He coached in Spain and Denmark and Finland and Germany before that. So I had them get together for a conversation to talk about what are next steps, where could he possibly go to start his career. So that's the next episode of the podcast. You can find that on iTunes, obviously at the website at coachingvb.com. It'll go up on social media, and also on YouTube as well. So I hope you look forward to it. With that, we can roll into Buzz Reaction.
Wow, this is wonderful. You boys have done a wonderful job of staying on time today. And John, you didn't even have to put them on mute.
No,
So we're giving these guys an A1. Let's move forward. All right, welcome to the Buzz Reaction. And today we will be having two guests come on in the last 15 minutes as part of our Wanna Be a Guest program, which we'll introduce them later in the show. Now, let's hear from our master coaches as they continue their conversation on today's Buzz show, as well as addressing the new dead period. We're going to go to Brian first. What do you think about the dead period being extended, Brian?
Well, before I jump into that, if people are interested in the mentoring program from Master Coaches, how do they contact us, Ruth?
They're going to go to our Instagram, which you're already taking. We already have that in there, but that's okay. We're going to our Instagram and they can jump on there and they can send an email directly to us for any type of consulting or mentorship.
That's good. Thank you. And the other thing is I wanted to impress upon people as I was listening to everybody that we have over 160 years of experience, this group. But we know how to make people feel comfortable, that we're not coming in with any big personalities and trying to take over any programs or take the credit for anything. We're there to help and support. People don't even have to know, like Mick's example of Bear Bryant at Alabama going to Texas before the USC game. No one knew he did that. And it's the same with us. No one needs to know that we're in a gym or around. We don't need credit for that. We are a silent partner. Okay, I wanted to say that. But as far as the dead period goes, extending the dead period, this is real pressure on the young kids. This is real pressure on the coaches, not being able to see them, not being able to go to get that, develop a good face-to-face relationship. And that is really missing. I hope at the same time you have to balance that with the health, everybody's health. So I'm hoping that, and for the first time, I feel that we're turning the corner on the virus, where numbers are going down. Hopefully they can readjust that time frame by next month and open it up once the numbers go down low enough and we can find a safe way to do it. But I am concerned about the lack of developing a relationship between players at a college, new incoming players and coaches and the school itself. So, it's a tough situation.
Okay, Bob or Mick, you have something?
Yeah, I'll go next. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense that it was extended, all right, and not changed to a quiet period, all right, because almost every university across the country are still having students come on campus to do campus tours because they still want to get the income of the new students. Well, why wouldn't you let athletes do that? Now, of course, the athletes have been coming on the campus, but they're not able to talk to the coaches. They're not able to meet the teams. I think that's kind of backwards. I mean, we have so many safety things in place right now that you surely could have them on campus. All right. Everybody's masked, everybody's, got 6 feet separation and so forth. You could still have them come in and at least, while they're on campus, meet with a coach, meet with the team, and just like they're doing on campus visits right now. I just don't understand why they didn't do that. I'm also kind of disappointed to think that they would extend it again, come the end of May. I mean, for some of the assistant coaches, even some of the head coaches that depend on, camps for their income in the summer, this is just going to, again, a second year in a row, it's just going to blow it up. So, I think Brian's right. You got to do things so you're not jeopardizing anybody's health. but they obviously don't think they jeopardize anybody's health having them do campus visits. So why not make it at least a quiet period?
Okay, Mick.
I'm going to go on a rant.
All right. Guess what? I'm unmuting you.
Oh, you can't mute me on this.
That's right.
I'm not going to, I think Brian and Bob have addressed this pretty straightforward, but here's the deal. This is the 40th year of the AVCA. The reason we started, and I was the first president, the founders were Banikowski at UCLA and Leskevich at UOP. And we all got together among a bunch of other people helping to bring the country together. So we would have people hear our point of view and not just be telling us what we did. We were just getting told from these groups like NC2A and AIW what we were going to do, how many teams in a tournament, what was this and that was. We didn't have input and the players didn't have input. So we formed a coaches association, and the coaches association grew through the various executive directors and coaches who got involved in the program up until we got to COVID. COVID really hit us hard. We had over 1,400 members, maybe more than that. I might be wrong about that figure, but we had an awfully strong coaches group, and we could lobby. When COVID hit and we did virtual convention, our coaches did not re-enroll as members of the AVCA. And that hurt us significantly in our lobbying effects. Do you know there were 7 other Olympic sport groups that lobbied to the NC2A not to extend this deadline for recruiting, but to open it up. And the NC2A turned all 8 groups away, including AVCA, and said, we're going to extend it to the end of May. Now that tells me something. That tells me that we don't have as much power as we need to have, because this was coming from the grassroots people. And any coach out there that's not a member of the ABCA right now, shame on you, because honestly, you need to be a member. This is priced appropriately for you. It's not putting you out, and your support is absolutely needed if we're going to be a strength as a NGB, and as to let the NC2A know what the membership really feels and what they need out there. We need to have numbers. So that's my rant. My rant is I want everybody that's not seen this properly to jump on board, get your membership in, sign up as an ABCA member. And if you haven't been a member, you need to be a member, because this is so important. We cannot not be heard by the governing associations. Our coaches are in the trenches. They know what's best for the athletes. They're working with the schools, and that's not always presented. Sometimes just football needs or basketball needs get thrown first, and everybody else is left to pick up the crumbs, and that's not right. We need strength. We need your support. We need you to be members, and so get after it, okay?
So Mick, if the AVCA was larger, instead of, 1,400, we know it's down from 1,400 right now, but if it was 2,000 or 3,000, well, then maybe the NCAA would pay attention to it.
Well, they have to pay attention, because with that number of people and the input they get, let's say each one of those members has contact with 20, let's say just 20 people. And those are people in the field, like players or whatever. They have a good understanding of what the needs are out there. The panic by the high school kids who want to be recruited, the panic by the college coaches who want to recruit and get their lifelines sustained so that they know who's coming to school, and the schools who need to know who's coming so they can get them ready to enter school appropriately and get all of their scores and everything straightened out. So everybody's disadvantaged when a rule is made like this, and then it really doesn't come back as to why it's made, how it benefits you when it's extended. Our association was in disagreement with the NC2A extending this, along with 7 other NGBs.
Well,
So,
but I think Ruth could give an example of the importance of the size of the group, and maybe the importance of us being registered for AVCA. Ruth, you know about an organization that has been able to control some things.
Absolutely. I'm going to address that first, and then we're going to take a question from the audience because it has to do with dead period. But the organization is out in California, and it was parents, and it has to do with all sports, and they have their own Facebook group. And the reason why that there's so many different locations that have different rules, like we may have somebody in Northern California that's practicing because they know the mayor, and the mayor said, if you don't have this, then you can play. Or you've got Stanford basketball who has to go out of Santa Clara to be able to practice somewhere else. So this group, and mainly high school parents, got together, and they now are changing the look and the feel of some of the rules in California, not Southern California, not Northern California, because I'm a Southern California girl and we didn't recognize Northern California. This is California parents. And you know, when parents get together, hey, they can have people fired in high school. So I think what we do is we get more people that are members of the AVCA, and we have more power, but you got to be able to give your input. I mean, it's just like this. If you say, okay, I'm not going to vote today because my vote doesn't make a difference. Well, Pat McChesney, which all of you know, she made me promise on her deathbed to say, Ruth, no matter if you're helping one person, you must continue to help. So if you think your vote or your membership doesn't help everyone, you need to become a member of AVCA. All right, so that's my rant, Mick. All right, so we have a question. How can kids promote themselves during dead period? Who wants to touch that first?
You answer that, Ruth. You answer that.
Oh, you guys.
I can give you an example, Brian, because I just got a call from a youngster just the other day that asked me if I would look at her video. She gave me the schools that she was interested in, and she wanted me to evaluate to see if she was good enough to go to these schools. Academically, she's good enough. Her club team is not one of the top 5 in the country. It's a normal club team that's out there playing hard and practicing hard. Her position is one where there's multiple people trying to get into school. So she knows she has to be good. She's willing to go to a high level Division III, but just wanted to know if possibility of her doing Division I and at a school that's academically at her level. So there's one example right there. She's reaching out and really going for this. And she approached me through my website, which I usually am working with teams. And now I'm starting to get individuals going that way. But MasterCoaches might start getting approached by people like that also, because they need help. And this young lady is researching different ways to help herself rather than standing there and saying, poor me. She's going for it.
Okay, well, that's great. So I'll give just a couple things. I would say, just remember, it's not the responsibility of your high school coach. It's not the responsibility of your club director or your recruiting director in your club. It's the responsibility of the kid and their parents to market their athlete. When the kid is a freshman in high school, parents should be helping 75% of the time, players 25. When they become a sophomore, 50% parents, 50% player. When they become junior, 75% player. And when they're a senior, 100%. So players, don't think that you're just going to go play in a tournament and win the tournament and think that everybody's going to come watch you play. I think you've got to learn to market yourself. And it's very difficult. But hey, when it comes down to it, mom and dad, if you're listening, guess what? If your kid goes to college and gets a scholarship and they get the scholarship taken away, hey, guess who's going to have to pay? So plan on your kid having the best grades possible, stay healthy, have fun, and understand how to market your kid. All right, how is that, Brian?
I knew you'd do it. I was not, no doubt.
Anybody knows Ruth has got the marketing down, right?
Yeah. I do want to say something about, respond before your question about what Mick and Bob were talking about in terms of power. I think it's not well known that very few sports are at a majority of Division I institutions. Men's and women's basketball and women's volleyball are really the 3 sports that are at almost all institutions. We have many more teams than baseball or even soccer, certainly football, but our numbers, women's volleyball Division I throughout the country, Division II, Division III are dominant. We have a huge number of teams, which can translate into power if, as Mick is talking about, everybody was behind it in one organization. So if all the teams, coaches throughout the country and assistant coaches were members of the AVCA, we would certainly have a powerful lobbying group within the organization. I wanted to add that.
And we could make a difference with that. Absolutely.
Sure.
People have to pay attention to numbers, because that is a serious concern for politicians, leaders of organizations, anybody that wants something on membership speaks up.
Okay, let's bring in our guest today to join in our new format, which allows our guest to be on the Buzz Reaction Show for 10 minutes after Master Coach's conversation of our Buzz Show. Each guest, are we ready? We don't see our guests. All right, there we are. Each guest has a chance to ask our Master Coaches a question they have always wanted to ask, or maybe was afraid to ask, or just wanted an opinion on a topic or a situation. First, we have Adriana Dolan, former Final Four standout at UTA, that is University of Texas at Arlington, member of the BYOP think tank, and is from Bedford, Texas, and originally from Uruguay. Sounds like a fight we're gonna do, huh? All right, next we have Shihab Ahmed Saeed, a FIVB instructor, coaches supervisor at Sultan Quabos Sports Academy, and from Muscat, Oman. Wow, I practiced on Google.
You did great, Ruth.
Welcome, Adriana and Shahab. All right, but before you ask your secret question, we would love to know how you have shared the information that you've heard from our weekly Buzz shows. And guess what? We're going to you first, Adriana, and welcome.
Well, hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, first of all, one of the things I love about your show is the very beginning of it. I just love to hear you guys talk before the show. I like to see your personalities before you start talking about volleyball. But since I'm not coaching at the moment, I do enjoy hearing everything that's happening at the moment, especially as a parent. I did enjoy it last year, especially going on, and right now through COVID. It was very informative to know what was going to happen during the volleyball season, if we're going to have a season or not. And so I really enjoyed listening to you guys and bringing on all the head people in the volleyball world and telling us, what was going to happen. So I did appreciate that.
Okay.
And for example, today you guys talking about AVCA and voting. So we all got to vote.
All right. Shihab, your thoughts on our weekly Buzz, and welcome, because it's almost midnight in Oman.
Yeah, it's all right. First of all, I would like to say hi for everybody, Mr. Prem, Bob, and Mr. Mike, and also my Mr. Ruth Nelson. I'm really highly appreciated for this invitation, because now the COVID-19 pandemic, everything will be disaster here and already suspending, but really it's good to sharing our knowledge between each other. So this is going to be the first step for me, and I would like to say thank you so much, because I learn a lot from AVCA. I learn a lot from MasterCoaches, because the life is not going to be coaches. Day by day, we are going to learn a lot of things, even when we reach the high level. So thank you so much for your time. I'm really highly appreciated for that.
So what you're telling us, you love Master Coaches Buzz, is that right? And you buzz it all around and share it on your social media, is that right?
Yeah, I would like to say something about AVCA, because since 2013, when I have been US I met Dick Bell. And that time, I know a lot about ABCA. This is since that time I got the membership. Really, I learned a lot about the materials. I learned a lot about the articles, about the updating for each university from the different coaches, different cultures, different states in US. I'm learning a lot from American volleyball. So the technology of the training, the aspects of coaching, the coaching pedagogy that are very important for coaching to improve and updating their knowledge. So we are not going to just only sharing the knowledge. We are going to sharing the knowledge, and also we are going to learn how can they transfer that knowledge to the practice. You know, the main things, what I want to say, I am really highly appreciated about the mini volleyball. You know, mini volleyball in US is really completely different because it will be based on the the good fundamental and basic of knowledge of coaches, because the main thing, if we are going to improving the abilities and the skills of kids, it's qualified coaches. If you don't have qualified coaches, we'll never ever get up. So really, I'm highly appreciated for all that websites, especially for ABCA, because still now I having the membership. Still now, when I'm gonna traveling a lot of IVB courses, I'm gonna advise all of the coaches and the participants of my sessions to get the membership to learn a lot about the American volleyball and a lot about the updating and upgrading of volleyball in US.
Wow, I didn't know if that was your question or you're saying what you loved about MasterCoaches. Okay, so let's go to our secret question that each of you have. And guess what, Adriana, we're going to you first. So what is your question?
Okay, my question is, so common mistakes, it could be philosophies, tactical, or just practice management that coaches, it could be inexperienced or a little more experienced coaches make that do not lead to positive outcomes in the long run.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just common mistakes that you guys either it happened to you or do you see happening out there that just that we all make that just not lead to positive outcomes in the long run.
Okay, who wants to go first?
I'll go first. How are you, Adriana?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I think a common mistake we all make is we assume outcome. We're assuming that we taught it so they know it. Most part of learning is forgetting. And how do you reinforce it? And how do you change it? And how do you develop things? But I think a common error is the assumption of the outcome because you went over it. And it can't be assumed. I think we get lucky when the outcome is exactly what he wanted to be. And it takes a long time to get it to be that. So I'll just give you that as a starter.
Okay, Bob or Mick?
I'll jump in because the two things that we've been pushing, one is, and Brian's right on it, I was going to say patience, but he's already hit that by saying it takes a long time. You have to stay with the process no matter where the ball goes, if I can just simplify that. The other thing is that we talk too much a lot of times, and a picture says so much more. If you can create a picture in the learner's mind and let them continue to copy that, eventually with the patience, as Brian said, and over a term of time, you will get a much better performance than trying to talk somebody through it. Only 1 out of 10, maybe 2 out of 10 learners can learn from verbalizing. 8 out of 10 learn from pictures. If you can use one word or a short number of words, 2 or 3, to create a picture of what you want to have happen, then the learner can copy the picture. And the words would immediately, you use those words to immediately get the learner to get the picture. And you have to show them the picture. Somehow the words have to be identified with the picture that's in the learner's mind. So that, I think that's where we lose out when we're trying to teach skills many times, is we don't create that picture and reinforce The words have to be the same so they reinforce that picture.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on a couple of things that Mick said. I've really started this year in particular. My common mistake is I just want to win. All right. And so if I start looking at the outcome, yeah, that's great when you have really good players. All right. But when you're building a program and or rebuilding a program, it makes it a little bit more frustrating. So the process, what Mick had addressed, is really what I'm trying to focus on this year. And he also mentioned the key words that we use in our skill series, our championship skill series. I think that's real important because it gives you a picture, it gives the athlete a picture of what you really want them to do. So I'll add one more thing to that, and that might be the clarity of communication. I have some rules of play, and I'm real clear about, if it's an out of system play, you're setting the ball diagonally. All right. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You do that. And I might have 25 of those rules of play, which are really basic, fundamental volleyball things that you'd be surprised most of the players never heard of. They might have heard one or two of them, but being able to be real clear on my communication, and this is how you do it, and this is what we're expecting, I think helps us move along a little bit faster and avoid some of the mistakes. And Adriana, I want to just say I really enjoyed our conversation the other night. We were on the phone for about an hour. It was great.
Okay, Bob and Adriana. Shahid, you got to ask your question because we're getting down to the last minutes of our show.
Yeah, actually, there is one question. Always, I'm getting this question from the coaches and a lot of participants in my sessions because I have a little experience with some volleyball schools in the worldwide. But the main question is, a lot of coaches facing a lot of problems, especially when they're teaching the skills for kids. There are many methods, and completely, they will be different. So what is the proper method when you're teaching the skills or the fundamental and basic of skills for kids? What is your advice about that? The Asian school, they are going to using volleyball. Some schools like American school, European school, they are using some equipments that will be easier and it will be good for the training they can do with the skills. What is your advice about that?
Bob and Brian, I think we ought to throw this one at Ruth to start with. You agree?
Oh yeah, because you know that we're running out of time. I would address this, that I remember in the Asians in the early 70s, Shahid, you weren't even born yet. I think you're in elementary school, but they were using a smaller number 5 or number 4 ball. But it was still weighted. And I think it depends on the culture of, like, I think in the US, you find more young kids, 5, 6, and 7 girls are really prissy with the bows and all that. And when they get their arms and it hurts them, they don't want to play anymore. So I think you've got to look at what each culture is very different. But I'm going to throw it back to one of the guys to talk about fundamentals. Have you seen the fundamentals change? You've seen me work with 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. Is it any different than what you would do?
No, I agree with you, Ruth, and I think you're right. I think all age groups are fundamentally the same. To try to answer the question as best I can, you need to decide what you want to teach. What are you going to teach? And then I think the problem becomes is that our sequence of teaching doesn't connect with itself. Meaning, if you were to teach mathematics, you go from page 1 to page 2 to page 3 to page 4. When we teach a skill in volleyball, I so often see page 1, page 2, page 28, page 165. We don't have a sequential pattern that makes sense, and it breaks down for players. So once it breaks down for players, they get lost, and then it's hard to recover. So if I teach skill, I make sure that I don't leave anything out. I think I interpreted your question correctly.
Okay,
Yeah.
Nick or Bob, we got 1 minute left.
Okay, if I could add to that, I totally agree. And I think what Ruth has done, Shihab, is she has taken, while a youngster is growing, their shoulder muscle might not be quite developed, the knees might not be quite developed. So she has lightened the load with using lighter weight balls so that there's no damage to the body. She's made it softer so the hitting of the ball on the arm doesn't cause pain, and it makes it much more fun for the youngster to play. And then you cut down the area because they're not able to move as far. So you make a smaller area for them to play in, and you've modified then the situation so that they can have success. And so when you take into consideration what all the coaches have said, and you take away the weight of the ball, the distance or the size of the court, and those kinds of things, then their chance of success young makes them much more excited to play and continue to get better as their bodies grow and mature.
Okay.
Ruth developed that ball herself, by the way.
That's
That's
right.
the Ruth volleyball through Baden,
Oh,
but
you
she
guys-
made that volleyball.
Hey, you guys think if you say nice things, we're gonna go over the 30 minutes?
No,
No.
I'm sorry, Ruth. I
All right,
apologize.
here we go. We've got, our time is up, and thanks Adriana and Shihab for joining us on today's Buzz Reaction. We wish you both great success as you move safely into your competitive season. And Adriana, thanks for supporting all of our efforts to get current information out on social media. We're excited to know that coaches still want to be life learners. And for those viewers that want to be on the Buzz Reaction guest list, jump over to our VB Master Coaches Instagram, go to the bio, click on the sign up to be a guest. For those coaches that are interested in our consulting services, please email our link on our VB Master Coaches Instagram. Be sure to tell your friends about our weekly news show. And thanks for joining us today, and see you next week on the Buzz.